Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KidBadger.com, out here today to revisit my AT ski setup I've been using this season. After those initial 5 days out there on my AT setup, I have been spending a lot more time on it. On the one hand, if you saw the video of the little 20+ mile adventure I went on with my buddy Bill Rapier of Amtech Shooting, we went on an adventure. Basically just over 20 miles, largely in pretty much just the AT setup, i.e. with skins, unlock the heel, and more or less cross country on those. And eventually came down, but I think maybe only once or twice actually locked the boot in for downhill skiing. And even then, yeah, pretty short stints. But since then, I've tried to get after it and put as many, get as many runs, as many hours as I could up on the mountain, going up there and Lookout Pass. Oftentimes, usually end up there with my boys and go up there and get as many runs in as we could. A lot of fun up there skiing with my boys. First black diamond and Ira's first black diamond. All right, lead the way. I'll follow you.
Oh, that would be an awesome jump spot.
That would be pretty epic. Well, I love skiing with my boys. They don't necessarily push me too much. Usually we go down relatively mild runs. A lot of blues, although my oldest son likes to go down black diamonds, and oftentimes will get me to go down black diamonds with him. Eventually started getting into some jumps, which has been a lot of fun. I will say, haven't hucked myself off anything crazy, but tried to capture what I could. Oftentimes I'm like, hey, will you go film for me? And it turns into a monster. But my youngest son managed to catch at least a little jump for me one of those days we were up there.
Awesome.
When the opportunity arises, it's definitely fun to go ski with adults because usually they end up going faster, and that consequently kind of makes you push yourself more. So a friend, Sarah, we ended up going up there and getting some runs up at Lookout, and it was good. Able to push myself definitely a little bit more. She beat me down the mountain this time. Of course, if you really want to push yourself, you'll get one of your friends who you're maybe a little competitive with and maybe is a way better skier than you, and then you just try and keep up. You end up going way faster than maybe you otherwise would. You follow them off much bigger jumps, and that's exactly what I did. I had the opportunity to come out and visit one of my good buddies, Drew, and we ended up going up to Red Lodge. I'd never been there before, over in Montana. I will say it was freezing, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Top of the mountain. As a quick aside, when I say freezing, I mean below freezing. I think we started off down there at the lodge. It was probably like -11. And later in the day, we're at the top of the mountain and the wind is howling, like trying to go down the mountain and being actually slowed by the wind coming up at us. It was really, really cold. And one thing that's definitely became, I don't know, a good learning point rather, is figuring out layering, like going and being active. Because skiing's one of those weird things too, where you, depending on the run, you might be really active, but then at the same time, you got to go sit on a lift to get back to the top of the mountain. So what I ended up actually coming down with is kind of two different setups. On the one hand, on arguably warmer days when, I don't know, if we had to assign numbers to it, like 25 plus degrees, usually end up wearing essentially a level 7 setup as far as the like scaling layers goes. Level 7 setup by Beyond Clothing. Basically bottoms, which are awesome. You can essentially unzip the whole side, step into them, zip them back down over your boots. Top, zip everything up. Hood goes over the helmet, everything like that. And do great for me. Conversely, when things get colder, we'll say sub 25, end up throwing on my Wild Things High Loft, which is basically Wild Things like level 7 as far as the whole kind of continuum of warming layers go. And yeah, does a pretty good job. I think honestly they're probably pretty close, but I feel like the Wild Things High Loft a little bit warmer. So sitting up there on those cold chairlifts, really good. The one thing I will say though is there's definitely been days where I've misjudged and I put on the Wild Things High Loft rather than the Beyond, and you end up sweating. And sweating obviously better than freezing to death, but then you get cold because now you have wet base layer against you, but still keeps you warm. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I would rather obviously err on the side of being too warm than too cold, but it is a thing. With how crazy cold Red Lodge was, I actually started the day with both level 7 setups. So basically the Beyond pants and then the Wild Things pants over it, Beyond jacket, Wild Things jacket over it, and then on top of that had the Tactical Distributors, their merino base layer under that. And yeah, it felt really good for that first lift up the mountain, and then coming down definitely started sweating. So I'm like, all right, got to start paring this back. And that's been interesting, just trying to figure out kind of that spectrum, like what kind of layers I'll need depending on essentially what the weather's like really at the end of the day. But through all of it, getting all these reps on these different mountains up to this point, having just today finished skiing up there on Red Lodge, which was really cold by the way, probably skied, I don't know, probably about a dozen times. Dozen trips up the mountain, to include that first trip skiing up the mountain with Bill Rapier, followed by, I guess, my 3 lessons, the third of which actually went up the mountain, wasn't on the bunny hill. And yeah, probably about a dozen, probably a good dozen trips up the mountain now, as far as like days skiing. And overall, it's been awesome. It's, on the one hand, it's cool to learn something new. And talking with different people, learning kind of different techniques, like, hey, try this, work on this, like, hey, maybe you can improve by doing this. And yeah, just continuing to get better and better. One of the things that's been good too is both up at Lookout Pass as well as actually spending time up on the mountain there. Had some amazing conditions up there today, like powder, is being able to work on moving through trees, which definitely want to go slow because trees are not going to move. Oh yeah, total quick aside, It was terrible. We were going up this lift, and they didn't get that much snow up at Red Lodge. I mean, they obviously had enough snow to go, but not what they usually have. Look down, the snowboarder, like looked down like right after, like heard him, and then looked up and saw him. We're going up the lift. Pretty much stopped himself on a rock, like with his torso and or hip. Like, he got busted up. Someone else stopped there, was trying to help him. Later, we saw him about an hour later. He was coming down the mountain in a sled behind ski patrol. Like an hour laying there in the mountain. Like, I don't know if he broke ribs, broke his hip, but not good. I don't want to do that, to include into trees, but I've been learning to slowly get better at navigating trees, and yeah, just being able to stay in control and control my speed and everything like that, which has been really cool.
Knock, knock, who's that?
Ring.
As far as my setup goes, the only thing I've kind of done differently, like modified or anything like that, aside from initially getting those boots fitted, was I finally got some powder baskets for my skis at, like, I think REI, like $10 or something like that. And those definitely make a big difference, probably more when I start doing kind of more backcountry, like AT type stuff. But no, overall, really liking the setup. Boots are, hold on, let me caveat that. I honestly haven't used really any other setup other than the loaner stuff for those initial kind of ski lessons. But my gear has been awesome. I haven't, like, I can't ask anything else of it. If I wreck and roll down the mountain, it's because of something I did. And just the fact that literally go up, spend the day, like one of the days I went like 17 runs, like just all day long. And then at the same time, be able to turn around and go 20 plus miles, largely pretty much with skins on, that's huge. And the setup has been amazing. Really, really like the way the bindings can essentially go back and forth, those shift bindings by Salomon. And the skis themselves, the Explorer 95s, I believe they are, done an incredible job for me. And the boots, they're awesome. Like, they're not the most comfortable, and honestly not usually like the warmest. By the time I'm done, oftentimes, like, my toes might be cold. Again, don't really know any different. Pretty much my first pair of boots I've ever owned as far as ski boots go, but they do a great job. Being able to, again, go back and forth between touring or going downhill, and the ability to actually unlock it so the ankle's articulated. It's awesome just on like the basic level of being able to get to and from the lift, things along those lines. Overall, definitely really appreciate it. And the helmet, I wasn't really sure about it at first, but I really like it. On the one hand, it does an amazing job keeping you warm, open and close the vents, and the hood both on this Wild Things High Loft as well as the Beyond High Loft, or level 7 Certa jacket. The hoods are both sides big enough to where I can put it over the helmet, which is really huge, especially just sitting on the chairlift, keeping all that heat in, keeping you warm so you don't end up piping out. But overall, this is where I'm at so far in the season with this gear. Like I said, probably about 12 days in as far as actual days on the mountain. And it's been rad. Come the end of the season, I'll probably wrap up full review of everything, but this is where I'm at right now. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.